season on Arrow, they've introduced the character of Curtis Holt. Curtis Holt is inspired by the character of Michael Holt, also known as Mr. Terrific from the DC Universe. For those of you who are not familiar with the character, here are a few stats about him. 1, he has genius level intellect and has 14 PhDs in many sciences and mathematic fields. He's an Olympic level athlete and a master of martial arts, pretty much all of them. He is a self-made millionaire. His company was actually bought by Wayne Corp in the DC Universe at one point or another because it was such a huge deal. And he is considered in the DC Universe to be the 3rd smartest person in the world. He is a friendly rival of Batman, intellectually, physically, not emotionally because he's actually a little bit more stable, but he also has emotional trauma because his wife and unborn child were both killed. He's an atheist. He's a very well-liked character in the DC Universe. He is one of the newer black superheroes he's created in the late 90s, I believe 97, and has been a core member of the Justice League pretty much since he's been incarnated. So why is he Felicity's sidekick? Arrow doesn't do race particularly terrible or well. The rotation of non-white characters have been very, very drip-drop. I mean, you did have the characters from last season. You had the whitewashed Ra's al Ghul, you've had China White. They're basically criminals with very stereotypical backgrounds. Tatsuo is probably the most complex one as Katana. And then of course we have Diggle. Diggle, who I love. I actually think Diggle is a well-written character. While he is Oliver's best friend, sidekick, confidant, he's not just the black best friend, even though that's the role he very much fills in the narrative. He is given his own storylines, his own backstory, successful relationships, a family. He is considered, I would consider him a success as a well-integrated minority character into a DC show. However, one does not mean that you are doing a fantastic job, and I think as much as I want to give them a lot of really great accolades for Diggle, still we have to acknowledge that not all these characters are written well, and that this rotation of non-white characters that don't get to do much, get overpowered easily, is a continuing thing for certain characters. John is also an original character. He was made up largely for Arrow, and therefore he has the ability to be whatever the narrative wants him to be. Whereas Mr. Terrific is an established character, and this is not the first time that they've taken an established character and weakened them to make Oliver or someone on Oliver's team look better. For example, Huntress and Black Canary are 2 of the best fighters in the DC Universe, and they have all been shitted on. Yes, you have Sarah, who is a very capable fighter, but however, as we see, she's been killed, resurrected. Basically, she became a hero because of other people. Her backstory is largely tied into Oliver and not something that belongs to her by herself. Same thing with Laurel now, as she's taken on the Black Canary mantle. She is also not being allowed to be as powerful as she was. And of course, Huntress has been screwed over since she came into the show. So when they announced Curtis, I was very happy to have a gay black character being in the show, but I'm also very suspect of the fact of why did they choose such a character who doesn't have to be someone's assistant. I mean, in the DC Universe, Mr. Terrific is a multi-millionaire. He is rich. He is a genius. Why wouldn't he simply be someone who's invested in wanting to buy out Palmer Tech? Why wouldn't he be someone who's interested in being co-CEOs with Felicity? That would be able to have him be right there with Felicity, being someone who could help her with problems. He could fulfill a lot of the same functions while not being her employee or her assistant, however you would like to call it. You are purposely devaluing him and his role to make him subservient to somebody else. And that is something I'm just not okay with, even though I don't have a problem with the character overall, because this is not the way it needed to be done. He's a very brilliant, very talented character, and just giving shout outs to that intellect or that physical capability does not make up for the fact that you purposely made him less important in the world that you've created than he originally was. I know that they have Diggle, but Diggle is not enough. Diggle cannot be just a sole, well-written black character in a sea of poorly written non-white characters. And I just feel very much wondering why. Why didn't you just do what you did with Diggle and make a completely new character who could be their own thing? Why did you take inspiration from a character who could be their own person? I mean, when you think about it, Ray Palmer, the way he was introduced last season, is a role that Mr. Terrific could have fulfilled if he had been brought in at that time. He wouldn't be quirky, he would be more serious. But I wonder if it's because if they did that, he would be a romantic rival for Oliver, and that's something they don't want to do. They'd have to, give him a love interest. I mean, he could still be gay, so I don't know why that would be an issue either. I just feel like a lot of it is very clumsily handled, and I've spoken a lot about how I feel about Iris being treated on The Flash, and I didn't want to make it seem like I don't notice the things that happen to black men or non-white male characters on the show, because I do. And I really do feel like with Curtis, it's a missed opportunity to do something a lot more with this character, because the character's name in the comics is Mr. Terrific. That should stand for something. And while there is plenty of time to build up the character, there's plenty of time to build up the character and make him really take on that mantle. But they've already erased so much of his history and what made him be able to take up that mantle instantaneously already, that I kind of can't help but say, like, I'm a little disappointed by that. I'm disappointed that they had a chance to really do something really different with this character and they chose not to. That's disappointing. And while I do like Curtis, and I do think it's great to have another character who's not marked for death, who isn't white, I can't help but be a little suspect about why they chose to write him this way.